Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Methanol Madness, brought to us by Daltons Landscape Supplies. We're all coming down off that big high on Saturday where we had a round of the War of the Wings, and of course all the North Island midget car drivers preparing for the Access Man New Zealand midget car title. AJ, it was great from the commentary box. It looked like a really good crowd.
Absolutely, a big crowd, great weather, and the racing was from the top shelf. And I think a lot of people are still buzzing from it. That was a very good night.
And joining us on the video link as usual, Louise Smith. Louise, you had a great view from the inside. What was the atmosphere like for you?
Yeah, it's really cool to get to experience the crowd interaction with the driver when they come into victory lane. It really shows just how unique the atmosphere is at the track at the moment, and it's really cool to see how pumped the crowd gets for those winners.
Well, to get the show started, of course, it's Crash of the Week, brought to us by Elite Re-Roofing. And we go back to the December 16th meeting, the War of the Wings. And if we have a look at Matthew Levisic here, the blue sprint car, he goes out of shot briefly, rides the wall, and takes a terrible tumble down the straight with a couple of other sprint cars just running into that car stricken on the track, AJ.
Yeah, it was a very hard tumble, wasn't it? Matthew just got up that wall, perhaps just in the wrong spot. It is very unforgiving, and he certainly had a wild ride and a half, didn't he? And a couple of the other boys, perhaps their vision was obscured by dust and traffic and so on.
Yeah, well, three tumbles there for Matthew, and Dylan Fory, just in one of his first sprint car outings, comes across that. A frightening moment for him also. Oscar Harcourt, you could see he was certainly blinded by Brenham Crouch. But good to see Matthew getting out of that car. They've had a heck of a run, those boys, and if I'm right, I think that's the third car they've destroyed this year. Well, time to move on to the Lyttelton Engineering review of the night. The first class we'll look at is the V6 wingless sprints, and Louise, Bailey Clive cemented his favouritism for the rumble coming up later in the year.
Yeah, it was a smaller field for the wingless sprints than we've seen this season so far, but still, their numbers didn't mean that the show disappointed at all. Bailey Clive still put on a very convincing win there with the pass on Andrew Gregg that I thought was very well calculated, and he saw the gap and knew he had to go for it, and then the rest was history. He was able to lead the rest of the feature race.
Yeah, they've had some pretty good racing all year, but it is Bailey Clive that's really starting to dominate that class quite nicely. AJ, we watched Corey Duckmanton win many laps in his heat race, only to be beaten on the last lap by Andrew Gregg. A disappointing moment for Corey.
Yeah, Corey would be pretty disappointed with that. One driver that really impressed me the other night was Andrew Gregg. He was placed in every race, and early this season, he was sort of struggling, I suspect, but he took out that feature win, the last race meeting before this one, and the big fella, he's on the bounce.
Well, he has got a good crew behind him, and Brian Phillips sets those cars up really well, and certainly it's a big part of the Gregg Racing team. Well, the next class we'll look at is the modified sprints, and a good field of modifieds. A few out-of-towners turned up, and Neville Bazillet jumped into the modified sprint. He was doing double duty on the night, racing the Midget as well. And of course, we know that Neville hasn't raced for a couple of years, AJ, but he still had fire in the belly, and he managed to win a heat race.
Yeah, how good was that? I've always been a bit of a fan of the Baz, and he just gets in there and goes about the business, and he looks for the opportunities as well. If there's nothing going to happen on the bottom part of the racetrack, Neville Bazillet will try a little bit higher. Super impressed with Harry McIntyre. He's coming on in leaps and bounds, and that Clay Cup could be heading his way later this season.
Yeah, there'll be a few people wanting to wrestle that off Harry or his chances of winning it. Louise, you did talk with Harry McIntyre in the infield afterwards. He was pretty pleased, and again, he's carrying on from his good form from last year.
Yeah, Harry's definitely become a bit of a regular in victory lane, and it's cool to see someone who's worked so long in the sport. Obviously with Caleb Bourne as well, they're very close, and he used to crew for Caleb with the sprint car, so he's got a lot of experience behind him, and he's definitely starting to show that now and collecting in those feature wins.
And time to move on to the three-quarter midgets. A good field took to the track on Saturday night. Plenty of winners going around here. Scott Bailey, Cameron Soul, Tyler Warnock took out the heat races, and a very popular feature win from Aaron Finlay. A great result for him. He's been toiling around for the last couple of years, been thereabouts, and took out a great win at the track. AJ, good to see Cameron Soul take out a win.
Cameron Soul, he's had a bit of a difficult season, hasn't he? It's sort of been a little bit up and down, but not only did he have the heat race win, but he was really strong in the feature race. Faded a little towards the end, but I was very impressed by Cameron.
And Louise, we were watching Cameron in that feature race. He was a little unlucky in the last couple of laps, but he performed very well there also.
Yeah, he was looking really strong for that third place podium finish, and I know that he's worked so hard this whole season, battling with all sorts of gremlins and the things that just come with dirt track racing. So to hold on to that third position for so long, but only to get pipped at the line, was very unlucky for that team.
And as we already mentioned, a very popular win by Aaron Finlay. Second was Tyler Warnock, and third Scott Bailey, with Cameron Soul in for fourth. And the next class we'll look at is the Midgets, with an action-packed field with 8 North Islanders down preparing for the New Zealand Midget car title happening in February. And Brad Mosen came to town and really dominated. He won his heat and won the feature, but unfortunately was disqualified through a technicality with Speedway NZ. Pretty difficult situation. He was so dominant in that feature race, AJ, and disappointing for him to be eliminated.
Absolutely it was, and some of these rules are a little pedantic, and what's said before a meeting may not happen during a race meeting. Very, very disappointing for everyone. Mosen is a class act, and he is going to take a hell of a lot of beating at the Nationals. Really impressed with Peter Honeybell, one of the veteran drivers for a young guy. He's been around an awful long time, won a Nationals, he knows what it's all about. And then you start looking at the young lions, Max Guilford was superb, Alec Inslee for a 17-year-old boy, what a talent. And super impressed with Luke McClymont in about his 6th or 7th meeting in a midget car, and Travis Buckley. Man, there's some talent out there.
Oh, absolutely, all those young guns coming through. And if you remember that interview with Brad Mosen a few weeks ago, he talked about the young talent coming through, and I think we witnessed some of that on Saturday night. Certainly it was the likes of Guilford and Honeybell and Buckley that impressed me, actually. Louise, how did you see it all?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to look past Brad Mosen. Obviously, he's so dominant and had a really successful first half of his season as well. But as you both have just said, the young drivers are really starting to come through and show their talents. And I think that the likes of Alec Inslee really proved that on Saturday night. He's been on a roll lately with his podiums, and he's got a really good team behind him. Obviously, last name is very popular within midget racing, so good pedigree there. And there's a lot of others as well that are really dominant in the north and south when they come down here.
Yeah, it's certainly going to make for a very big New Zealand midget car title. And I was surprised. Alec Inslee, just 17 years old. Travis Buckley, 20. Max Gilbert, not sure exactly, 22, 23, something like that. And doing double duty on the night too, Max. Great to see you bringing both cars down. South Islanders, not such a good night for the South Islanders, but Nathan Wilkie, you really impressed us. You were leading a heat race there with Brad Mosen on your tail for quite a few laps, and that car of yours had all the horsepower in the world, and you really drove beautifully for half a race there. They eventually got you on a restart, I think it was, but a very good performance by you, Nathan. And Mitchell Hill, I seen him pop his nose up for 4th and 5th there, and I thought he went well as well.
I thought Mitchell did as well. Our boys, they may not have figured in the results. They will be way better for having faced that competition this weekend. They've got a couple of weeks now to think about it. They now know what the expectation is. They know what the pace is going to be. They know what's required.
And the last class we'll review is the sprint cars. It was a round of the War of the Wings, and it all started off with a time trial, and it was Max Guilford that topped out the time trial, AJ.
Max Guilford, took out the feature for the Hydraulic War of the Wings at Greymouth, came down here, and he timed badly at Greymouth by his own admission, came down here and flipped that form around, and he put up a very good show. Really unlucky for some of the guys. Dave Kerr, we've waited such a long time for Dave to come back. Waiting for an engine to be put together, and now they've struck an engine issue. Yeah. Chris Gemmett likewise, sort of waiting for an engine to be repaired. Now they're going to be on the sideline. We probably won't see Chris back this summer, but again, Conor Rangi. I thought it was a Conor Rangi show, and he's threatened performances like this. Put on a very good performance at Ruapuna in the first round of the Hydraulic War of the Wings, albeit taking the victory after Joel Myers struck an engine problem on the last lap or so. But this time, he won hands down.
So some pretty good racing with Conor Rangi taking it out, Joel Myers second, and Dylan Fory for third, Louise.
Yeah, it was a really good feature race for the sprint cars. Obviously, they've been putting on a show for a couple of weeks now, but it was really impressive to watch Connor survive some of those late race restarts there with Joel Myers Jr. hot on his tail. Obviously, he's not really one that you want to have starting behind if you want to restart when we know how talented he is, but Connor was able to continue to dominate and bring home that feature win. But it was on those late race restarts there that Dylan Fory was able to sneak by Jamie Duff and get into that third position.
Yeah, well, it was Dylan that really surprised all of us with a pretty good performance to get third in the War of the Wings. Well, joining the show is Dylan Fory, and Dylan, welcome to the show, mate. You must be really happy with that performance on Saturday night. You really surprised all of us by putting that last pass move on Jamie Duff to secure third position.
Yeah, it was definitely unexpected so early in our career, but yeah, can't be happier at the moment. You know, we got a good result, and we've had a good couple of weeks, and a good overall start to the sprint car career this year, and you know, really happy for the team and what we're achieving at the moment is well beyond where we thought we would be at this time, and probably the next couple of years as well. But yeah, just really happy and keep moving forward to next week.
Well, you got a fifth in Greymouth, which was a great performance, and that third has really cemented you as a really good up-and-coming driver. How have you approached the sprint cars, mate? They must be completely different to the TQ, and I remember at the start of the season you said you hadn't even turned a lap in it before you got into it.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of key things that transfer from the TQ over to the sprint car, but everything else is pretty different. But it's really cool. Like, we're really enjoying it at the moment, and it's pretty cool scene. Like, we've had some great help from Elvis Kerry Bartlett. He's our crew chief, and he's sort of been our biggest help, you know, of taking the step forward, and probably the reason we're running so good. You know, he's a whiz as a crew chief, and we've really gelled well together, and that's full credit to him as the results that we're getting.
Well, we watched you in your first outing at the War of the Wings. You come across the accident of Matthew Leversedge. That must have been a frightening moment. You virtually had nowhere to go. And tell us, what's it like, that extra pace, and things must happen a lot quicker?
You realise how fast you're going. We didn't need to stop in a hurry, that's for sure. Just unfortunate sort of turn of events there. Probably with a little bit more experience, probably should have been able to avoid that. But yeah, it is what it is. You know, we sort of come back strong after that, and know the job that we need to do, and just keep on doing it. So yeah, no, we're pretty happy.
Well, there's plenty of people pretty impressed with your rookie season in sprint cars. AJ, what do you make of Dylan Fory? He's going pretty well at the moment.
He's going really well, and Dylan did say to me earlier in the season, look, you know, Granddad's team is, you know, we've got really good gear, and I'm the guy that actually has to sort of get in and make it worthwhile for everyone, and he's far exceeded, I think, everyone's expectations. I absolutely didn't expect him to be where he's at. But what we saw at Greymouth, I thought, was a very smart racing, and on conditions that were getting a little bit difficult for the guys, and he was picking his moves, and he was looking down the track, seeing what was happening, and he knew just where to go. And now the night, Jamie Duff would have been taken by surprise. Not many people, you know, make an inside move on Jamie Duff towards the end of the feature, and it was a smart move. You know, and it was what it was. It was something that I'm pretty sure Dylan might have been plotting for about the last lap or so, as he's just inching closer and closer, and he probably knew, I've got one chance at this, and he took it.
Tell us, Dylan, what was that moment like? You would have been sitting in the cockpit, and I'm sure you felt like you had a bit of momentum going. What's it like when you actually make the move?
It was a pretty cool feeling knowing at the time that move was for third, and went through the white flag sitting in fourth, and I was like, oh yeah, we sort of give this one more crack and see what happens, and roll to the finish, but and just come off turn two, just got to run off the bottom in the rubber, and made the pass, and went into turn three and come out of turn four and across the line. It was pretty cool. I sort of counted back from that last restart with about 10 or so to go, 5 to go, something like that, and we're sitting in fifth, and made a cool pass on Crouch off the exit of four, and got moving, and just felt really comfortable down on the bottom. Just sort of that TQ experience has helped me a ton with that, and just learning how to roll the bottom nicely, and just, you know, barely on the throttle, and just keep driving forward. And yeah, we got to that battle between Joel and Jamie, and that was actually really cool to watch those two go at it for most of the race. Full credit to those two. They put on a hell of a show for the crowd, and that's really the most important thing on a race night.
Well, I tell you what, mate, it's an epic rise in your rookie sprint car career, and plenty of people that were celebrating with you at the podium. It was a really popular third position, and people recognised how good that result was for you. So congratulations, Dylan. What's your next move, mate? Are you likely to be at the next War of the Wings?
Yep, for sure. We'll be at Nelson this weekend, and then we'll be at Ellesmere, I think, the following weekend, I'm pretty sure. So we'll finish up those 2 rounds. We're sitting 5th in points, so we'll see what happens and just keep on moving. We're really happy with everything that's been happening, and we'll just keep on chugging along and see where we get.
Well, good stuff, Dylan. Thanks for joining the show, mate. We'll catch up with you at the track next time. And, of course, the War of the Wings, AJ, now moves on to Nelson. How's it all looking for competitor numbers there?
Nelson this weekend, probably going to be sitting around 11, 12 cars. A bit of attrition at the weekend. And, of course, there's a Southern Series event down south. So some of the Southern guys are going to be absorbed in that. But, 10, 11, 12 cars at Nelson. And that's plenty enough on that bull ring. And that's it. But, hugely disappointed. Earlier in the week, Woodford Glen decided they would cancel the February the 9 show, and they weren't going to reschedule any rounds of the Hydrolink War of the Wings. The plug was pulled, and so we had some discussions with Hydrolink, and the decision was made that Ellesmere will be the final. We had wanted to have a 7-round series, but Ellesmere is going to be a great show. Out there at Hazard County, they know how to enjoy themselves, and their committee, they're so keen and willing and excited to be doing it, and that's what we want. We want to be racing at tracks where the organisers are excited and want the class there, and so it's going to be something to really look forward to.
Yeah, I'm staggered that Woodford Glen don't want the sprint cars there after arranging that they would have them there. Obviously some politics going on. We'll bring that up in a section later in the show. But look, the War of the Wings, as far as I can see, has been very popular, and every time we've hosted it at Ruapuna, we've had enormous crowds. Certainly lots of atmosphere at Ruapuna, and difficult to know how many people the War of the Wings bring in, but every time they race, it's spectacular and exciting. Look, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and after the break, we've got the Share and Win competition. Welcome to Wellington's largest caravan and RV shop. CB Caravans and RV Centre look after repairs and maintenance, and they are leak specialists. CB Caravans and RV Centre import UK caravans. Need to sell? They can help. CB Caravans and RV Centre, your caravan solution. Catch up with Will and Wendy today. Oh, great to have Will and Wendy on from CB Caravans as sponsors of the show. Of course, their drivers Luke McClymont and Dean Brindle. Well, time to move on to the Share and Win competition. Remember, folks, if you'd like a chance of winning a family pass to our next meeting, which will be the 3rd of February, you need to share this post online. And of course, that is for the New Zealand Midget Car Championship, February 3rd and 4th. The pass will be for the 3rd, and that'll get you a family access to the track. And just share that on your Facebook posts, and we'll pick 10 winners and announce that on the show next week. Okay, time to move on to Dirt Track News, brought to us by CB Caravans and RV Centre. And the first event we'll look at is Speed Week. Of course, that's happening on the 5th, 6th, 11th and 13th of April. This is an enormous week of racing, AJ.
Christmas is coming in April this year. I'm so looking forward to it, and there's plenty on, isn't there? The Sprint Car Gold Cup, the Sprint Car Grand Prix, the first Midget Car Gold Cup, plus the Ruapuna Rumble for the wingless, and there's 30 entries for that. It's going to be bigger than Ben-Hur.
Absolutely enormous, of course. This is our maiden running of Sprint Week, or Speed Week, I should say, and we're so looking forward to getting this one on the calendar. Plenty of entertainment arranged for that week as well, and with a bit of luck, if we get it right, we're going to cement that as part of the Ruapuna calendar. Louise, you're going to be part of it, of course, and it's going to be pretty high-octane racing, 4 days over 8 nights.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that week. I think it's one that a lot of people should have blocked off on their calendars already, and one event that I'm really looking forward to is actually the first one of that week, which will be the BT Race for Mates for the Midgets on the Friday night. It's an event that I look forward to every year, and whilst I was bummed it's on a different weekend, so I'm not sure it's going to have the same feel. I'm sure that all the competitors and all the people involved in that great event for a great cause are all going to make it all the same, and it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, plenty of North Islanders coming down for the midgets and the sprint cars, and of course that rumble being mixed in the middle there somewhere as well. Certainly a week you don't want to miss if you're a Speedway fan. The next event we'll look at is the CTRA New Zealand Quarter Midget Championship, and that's happening in Dargaville this year, Louise.
Yeah, obviously with the quarter midgets not being a national Speedway New Zealand class, the closest thing that they get to a title where they can put 1, 2 and 3 on their car is the CTRA title, which was held at Ellesmere a couple of years ago, which brought down a lot of North Islanders, which is really cool. But this year we've got Jack Brownlees and Darcy Rasmussen going up to compete, which is a big long haul for them up to the far north, but I'm really hoping that the boys do well. Obviously both Christchurch registered cars and they've both been really strong down here, so hopefully they can take some of that up to the North Island and show them what they're made of.
Yeah, well, Jack's a pretty good racer. So is Darcy, of course. And just a shame that the Thompson boys aren't going. Those two drivers have really come on recently, and the competition's pretty fierce with those quarter midget drivers. Well, of course, the next event we'll talk about is the Access Man Midget Car Championship. We all know it's on the 3rd and 4th of February. We've already had a wee taste of some of those North Islanders coming down, and that was a pretty good run on Saturday, wasn't it, AJ? We got to see some top-class midget car racing.
It was probably the best advert that you could get for a major promotion that's coming up, and it reminded us just how good midget car racing is. And you know, there was no love lost between those guys. They weren't racing for sheep stations, they were racing for pride. And by God, there's a lot of pride on offer, isn't there?
Well, there is, and it was interesting, Brad Mosen's podium speech out on the infield, how he was saying that he really enjoyed the track, and that other comment saying he thought it was the best track in New Zealand at the moment for racing. That came out of the blue, and great to hear that from Brad Mosen.
It was, and look, you know, for a long, long time, Ruapuna was, you know, sort of like an old flat rugby ball. It used to get kicked all over town. But, you know, when those guys start telling you how they notice the show, how they notice the track, how they notice the total package, including the entertainment. You know, Jonathan Allard has told us about it, Graham Standring, you know, when you get guys like that make these comments, you know, they're just not saying it to be pleasant, because Standring used to give me one hell of a serve about how bad it was coming to Ruapuna. So, you know, we'll take it. Doesn't mean we're happy.
No. Well, plenty of improvement still to be had with the track and the committee there, but certainly if you haven't been down to Ruapuna, get yourself down, and nothing better than this big championship coming up on the 3rd and 4th of February. We might take a quick look at some of the entries for the Access Man New Zealand Midget Car Championship, and anything catch your eye there, Louise?
Yeah, well, for starters, I think the great field of over 35 cars really has got to catch anyone's eye. I think it's really cool to kind of see how many midgets want to come down, and obviously it's such a prestigious event, but definitely there's 3 previous New Zealand champions in that list, and plenty of people capable of taking it out. So whilst my money's on Brad Mosen, I think that at the end of the day with midget racing, it could be anyone's game.
Yeah, I think you're right. Certainly some highlights across that field there. As you said, 1 NZ, 2 NZ, 3 NZ, that's great. And of course, we've got the North Island champion, Luke McClymont there. Our best chances, I think, will lay now with somebody like Tom Lumsden, maybe Liam McCoury, but Liam McCoury had some big motor issues on Saturday, so difficult to know how that will play out. And of course, it was Nathan Wilkie that had the great performance on Saturday, AJ. That was quite stunning. He was really leading Brad Mosen, and Brad Mosen couldn't get past him.
I think it was the best I've seen Nathan go, and he's had a good career. But that was exceptional, the way he drove, and he was picking his lines, and Mosen was all over him trying, and it was just one simple mistake, and then I think the pace of the North Island boys sort of wore Nathan down. But he was very impressive. I wouldn't write off Jack Lowe. Jack is a big night driver, and they will have gone away, and they're pretty smart, those Lowe boys, and they will know just what they've got to do.
Yeah, I think you're right, and how could I forget Jack Lowe? He's certainly been an outstanding performer in the last few years, and especially with that North Island campaign they did a couple of seasons ago. The last subject on Dirt Track News tonight is date clashes, and some recent revelations about the War of the Wings being cancelled at Woodford Glen recently has brought this topic into hot focus. AJ, very disappointing that your War of the Wings got cancelled so late in the piece.
It is, we are not fully aware of the in-depth picture, but, the Tom-Toms have been beating around Christchurch the last couple of weeks, often by fairly poorly informed people. Some people are really sort of exercising their gums, and almost without fault, they're saying, why is Ruapuna clashing with Woodford Glen's Super Saloon Grand Prix? I haven't heard one person say, why is Woodford Glen Super Saloon Grand Prix clashing with Ruapuna's War of the Wings? And so it gets down to dates. And, the calendar is fairly condensed. Within Moorpark, Woodford Glen and Ruapuna, there's approximately 40 Speedway New Zealand sanctioned events. every summer. Yeah. I do not know how you can fit 40 into 6 months. I'm no mathematician, but I know you just can't do it. There will be clashes. Both tracks are well and truly aware of each other's calendars. And last year, Ruapuna ran on the 21st of January. Mm-hmm. This year, we ran on the 20th of January. Last year, the Glen ran a 2-night show on the 13th and 14th of January, and then they ran on the 28th of January. Mm-hmm. Ruapuna's calendar is pretty much set in stone. You know, we know we're going to be the 3rd weekend in January. We know we're going to be the 1st weekend in February. We know we're going to be the 1st weekend in March, and things like that. We know we're going to be the 3rd weekend in December. And so both tracks seem to be pretty much at ease with each other's calendars because they have been out and about since about July. Everyone knows what's going on. Disappointing to hear all of a sudden that how unfair it is that there are clashes. And look, the accusations are coming from both sides, and everyone's got to be above that. The thing about promoting is actually a very simple thing. It is about mitigating risk, mitigate your losses. And so if you've got the product, then you start looking at how you're best not going to get a kick in the pants. And it could be, okay, let's choose the time of year we're going to do it. And unfortunately, the Glen had to schedule the Super Saloon Grand Prix somewhere around the New Zealand Super Saloon Championship, which was the weekend before. Ruapuna has to fit in the Hydraulic War of the Wings. And so they set that date. We run the 3rd weekend in January. We've got that. Greymouth is the weekend before. Nelson is the weekend after. It fits nicely. And so the Super Saloon Grand Prix maybe could have been held earlier in January, but Steve Lennon is one very smart operator. And so, you know, he would have had his reasons. So a little bit disappointing. And, you know, what do they say? The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so a lot of people have been making one hell of a lot of noise. I think we worked out between the Glen and Ruapuna, there was something like 33 race meetings between the two tracks this year, and they clashed 3 times. Yeah. You know, let's get real. That's not a major problem. Disappointing, yes, because there are people that want to go to both tracks, and I understand their frustration. But, you know, what is it? 33 into however many weekends is just impossible. And Ruapuna also has these restrictions when they can run. We can't run over the Christmas New Year period because of our operational licence with Ruapuna Park. You know, we just can't do it. And so for the people that are out there making a hell of a lot of noise, A, they're ill-informed, and B, they're not particularly intelligent because they're just grasping at straws. And it does come from both camps, and then from people who don't align themselves with any one track. So they've actually got to get real, sit there and look what's on and when can we squeeze it in. And to be honest, no one likes running Friday nights.
Well, it's an interesting moment in Speedway history here because for a long time there, Woodford Glen really did dominate the crowds, and it looks like Ruapuna is starting to nip into that a little bit. That might be another element that's coming into play. And I know from our committee side of things, this was discussed between 2 promoters, and these dates were actually known about anyway. So difficult to know what's going on in the world of Speedway in Christchurch here, but certainly a few tensions, and the cancellation of the War of the Wings coming out of the blue is certainly disappointing. Well, folks, the next meeting that we all look forward to is the 3rd of February, which is the Saturday night for the Access Man New Zealand Midget Car Championship. Of course, that'll be running on Sunday and concluded, and we'll know a champion on Sunday evening. It's going to be fantastic to watch. If you haven't been down to the track, make sure you get yourself down there for a night of entertainment and high-octane action. Well, look, my thanks to AJ Batt and Louise Smith for joining the show, and until next time, keep your foot up it.